Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can.
And you see me or not? Because the
No,
video is turning and turning and turning.
nope, cannot see you yet.
Why? What is happening again?
Hmm. Discord.
Oh, because before I already had a crash with a
Mm-hmm.
virtual machine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then I rebooted, but I thought in meanwhile with all the updates it would be solved, but apparently not.
That's
My
not what updates are
camera.
for.
Yeah, wait, let me see because but yesterday we were on Zoom, we were
Yeah,
not on Discord. Wait, I
yeah.
go to
And
the
on
set.
Zoom, on that particular Zoom call, you wouldn't have been able to share your screen, so I don't think that would have
No,
taken over the camera.
no, but just checking because I did set my camera. Um, where was that? Yeah, voice and video. Input device, voice, that should be okay. Video, test video. My camera is in. Oh, yeah, I see. I'm gonna dive under my desk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, with cats running around my house and on top of my desk,
Well,
things get unplugged
I
all the
have
time.
I have no cats. I have no dog. I do have children, but they are big already.
Oh,
But
we just switched audio, so now I hear the room instead of the microphone.
okay. Oh, so
Yeah. When you plugged in the camera, it probably
video,
said, "Oh, there's a new microphone. I'll use that one."
yeah. It's using the micros from the room now from the camera.
And now I hear the
Okay.
input.
Now let's see. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Hey, technical difficulty solved.
Yeah. That these cables are just running below the table,
Mm-hmm.
and I must probably have hooked on them with my feet. No cats needed for that. Okay. That was a nice presentation yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Um,
the original thought was to do just a presentation on how to do historical modeling, um, and then we're doing that as part of a series of modern application or application development modernization.
mhm.
So um, modernizing your practices for building applications, and so we wanted to certainly be able to cover domain-driven design. That's a big part of what happens in the rest of um, the rest of the talks, but then also um, add
The
some
event
event
storming.
storming. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and I think that actually I think improved the talk. Now it it puts the historical modeling workshop in the right space. So so yeah, now it's not like hey, here's this brand new thing all by itself. It's like no, this is an extension of some other practices that you should probably
Mhm.
start doing anyway.
Yeah, but I'm always happy when you reach historical modeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and comparing it to event storming, that really helps to show the difference. When I just say the words, people say, "Oh,
Mhm.
well, that sounds like event sourcing," and I have to say, "No, no, partial order." But then we say event storming, and time goes this way, and then historical modeling, time goes that way. Then,
Mhm.
oh yeah, it's right there on the screen. I can see it.
No, it was nice. It was nice. Um, the only difference it's completely not interactive. You can ask
Yeah,
some questions through the chat, but it's okay.
yeah. Well, that's why we do
I
this, so people can interact on
mm,
YouTube. They can interact on Discord.
mhm. I found back the models. I must admit. I thought, but we recently, not so long ago, and that was the 15th of February,
Mm-hmm.
um, we made the model much easier, much simpler,
Yeah.
to make it equal to what we have today in the application.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't find it anymore, but I did find it finally. Um, so it's back there. In me, the virtual machine just restarted because it had an update. Fine. Um, but okay, I made a copy of it to my main screen. The only thing is I cannot edit it. Um, wait, let me share that one. Share the complex or the simple one first.
Let's start simple and then
The
we can
simple
get
one.
complex. Yeah.
So here he goes to better text readability. Okay, that works for the moment.
Yes. Yes. I can see it.
Why? How can I adapt it that you see it
Oh.
completely?
Yeah.
Uh,
That looks really
is
good.
that's okay?
Yes. Yeah. I can see the whole thing.
Hmm.
Perfect aspect ratio.
Right. I take the full one for me here as well. So in this one we left out um, a lot of the tools. I mean the no, um, it's not what we call tools. It's the type of work that we started.
Okay.
That one we made a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's right. Those used to be separate fact types, I
yeah,
believe. Yeah.
and then also for the before we had a difference between a user and a worker, and so here it's just a user that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a user in the future version can be a dispatcher as well.
Yes.
So a user could be a worker, somebody who works in the field,
Mm-hmm.
or could be the dispatcher. So for the moment, the user can only be um, the worker in the field, because the dispatcher, that's just the console, and there is no login required there.
Yeah. Yeah. So here I see user has the predecessor of supplier. So that means that it, when you when you register, somehow you select a specific supplier. So tell me about what is supplier again.
Supplier is actually my customer. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
my customer has a user. Um, that user will be assigned a task. Do you see my cursor?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Will be assigned a task, and that task is work for a client of my customer,
Mm-hmm.
the supplier. So it's a, we have two levels of clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
um, so then, um, so yeah, as a user, so that workforce is entirely within the scope of the supplier, your
Yeah.
customer. Yeah. Okay, so you don't
So
have people who are doing some work for one supplier and for another supplier.
um, not in this version,
Okay.
but we might have in the future. And I think that's something that did we foresee that in um, did we do something in the new version for that? Yeah,
um, Possibly.
yeah.
So one of the basically what drew my attention to that was the fact that user has a predecessor, and the security principal Janaga user does
Mm.
not have a predecessor. It just has a public key, um, and so this would have to be a uh, DWS specific user. So this is, some, some member of the supplier. So
Yeah.
with that, um, with that model, you could actually log in once, be a Janaga user, and then have that associated with this user, this member of the supplier, and uh, you could be provisioned, you could be invited to several different suppliers, um, and then switch from one to the next, if that's the way you wanted to go.
Yeah, but not in this version. But if you wait, I switch to the other one. This one, is that still readable?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So we see.
Because here we have the supplier and the user both on top level.
Yeah. Yeah. And so having the different types of users, like worker
Yeah.
or dispatcher, as two different types of users belonging to the supplier.
Mm,
Now you've got um, that that helps you to write the security rules, and it also helps you to associate things to just the right kind of user. So workers can be assigned tasks. So you see the line from assigned goes up to worker, but
mm,
it doesn't go up to dispatcher.
yeah. Um, wait, a task. Uh, yeah, a task is assigned here
Mm-hmm.
to a worker. Yeah, and is created by a
Yeah,
user.
created by a user,
Yeah.
which uh, I think you if I, yeah, this is going way back, but um, it could be that the arrow from assigned goes up to dispatcher if you wanted to limit it to only dispatchers can assign work. But I think what you wanted to do was to have some use cases where a user can just claim work,
Mm,
they can assign it to themselves, as a,
absolutely.
yeah.
If the dispatcher is not available, for example, for emergency work, then the users can create their own tasks.
Yeah.
That's why we link this to task to user and not to dispatcher or not to worker.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, yeah, so I think at least this part of the model is more expressive here. So, so yeah, in the new model, you might want to
yeah.
pull this idea forward.
But this type of authentication, because you had a few plans for new uh, authentication possibilities. Is there anything that might be useful in this schema?
Um, yeah, so um, yeah, authentication and authorization are are very different.
Mm,
When so the model makes it clear that those two things are different. So so you get a user just by authenticating, but then you're authorized as a worker in a supplier, um, or as a dispatcher in a supplier when an administrator creates the worker or the dispatcher fact. Um, so so I think yeah, with the other model, I'm not seeing that clear distinction. So how do you envision provisioning a new worker and provisioning a new dispatcher?
um, for the moment, it's just me who creates them for the
Mm-hmm.
customers. But in the future, it would be nice if a worker could log on himself with a code, for example, that he got from the company,
Mm-hmm.
from his supplier,
Okay.
um, or that a supplier could add a user in one or the other way. But that means that a user can work for multiple suppliers.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So it's not a person that is creating that worker fact in that case, but it's still um, it's still authorized via code. So similar to with Discord, there's an invitation, an invite code that anybody can use, and it automatically adds them to the server. So that same kind of idea. It's just like here's a code. Any of my workers, I just give you this code and you can use it.
Um, yes, but that worker logs in, and at that moment he creates a password for himself,
Mm.
which he can use on other devices as well to log in.
Okay, so
And every device, because every device should be identifiable. If a device gets lost, that the company can say, okay, that device we don't want it to sync anymore.
okay,
So
yeah,
there is a difference between a user and a device.
yes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if a worker works for multiple suppliers, do they have just one password, just one login that spans all those suppliers?
I think it's more interesting to give them a separate password for
Oh,
every.
separate for each one. Okay.
Um,
Okay. So,
because because if the supplier gets the password from his worker, which always happens in one or the other way,
mhm.
then he could log in to the worker's account of another supplier
Okay.
and see all the customers. So
Okay.
that should be avoided,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay. Um, yeah. If you could avoid that some other way. So the two options that I'm thinking about are, well, I guess they both include the fact that that would um, you would run um, a an identity provider yourself. So for all suppliers, you are in charge of identity, username, password. So maybe it's um, Auth0. Let's say that you get an
Mm.
Auth0 subscription. It's like, okay, everybody goes through this in order to create username and passwords. It's not Google. Um, it's not Apple. And then the two options are excuse me, whether the supplier is a tenant inside of that identity provider. So I picked Auth0 because Auth0 has tenancy built in. Um,
Mm.
so that means you can register for Auth0 service, and then anytime a supplier wants to get set up, you go into Auth0 and you say, "Here's a brand new tenant," and now somebody has to select that tenant before they can create an account. And and so now on a different supplier, they select a different tenant and create a different account. Um, so that um, that agrees with the that new
With
model that you just showed.
with account, do you mean the an account for the worker, for the user, or an account for the tenant?
For the worker, for the user, yes.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so that would mean that
Mm.
before you log in, you pick which supplier you're logging in for, and you create a new password for every supplier, and you can reuse your email address from one to the next.
Yeah.
Um,
But, but so that would mean that every new user, I have to add him or her to the system first, give
um,
him an identity.
no, you would need to every supplier you would add to the system, but that's already the
Mm.
onboarding process that you go through.
Yeah.
You're, you're doing that rarely, but you're happy when you're doing that because that's a new product.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
and so then so that's one option, multi-tenant identity. Um, then the other option, single tenant identity, is that somebody just logs into DWS and then once they're logged in, they can see these are the suppliers to which I'm authorized. Um, and so that's kind of the difference between the user fact having a predecessor of supplier and the user fact being at the top level. At the top level, it's single tenant identity. If it's a successor to supplier, then it's multi-tenant identity.
Yeah. Because it would be, because if they are single tenant identity, so then they cannot see a list of suppliers.
Um,
So then how do they log in at that moment?
yeah. Okay. So if yeah, that one's actually the multi-tenant identity that uh, that they. Okay. Um, yeah. So let's talk about if it's if it's single tenant identity, user is at the top. Then at the time that you're presented with a login page, it's just username, password, and then after that you see the list of suppliers. Um, but the multi-tenant identity is the reverse of that. The login page has a list of suppliers, um, and in fact, you might even inside of your app have have the list first, and then when you like this maybe your favorites, and then you go to that supplier, and then you can log in if you're
Mm-hmm.
not logged in already. So so yeah, the difference from the user's perspective is, do you pick the supplier before you log in or after?
But then that user wants to log in, um, but he needs to be authorized to log in by the supplier first.
Yeah, so that's the account creation
So
part. Is that
so
yeah? What do you want that
so
experience
so
to
in,
look like?
so in fact, in one or the other way, the supplier has to don to give permission to a user to log in into his system,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise whoever could just go to the system, select one of the suppliers,
Yeah,
or already the fact that you see the list of suppliers
yeah,
should be protected.
yeah. Okay, so
So,
that's one place where the authorization authentication divide uh, really comes into play. So um, so at some point, when the worker is introduced to the system, they need to create an account. Um, so
mhm,
um, there are some systems that the administrator creates the account, enters in a username and a password, and sends that information to the user. Um, yeah, I don't want I don't want to promote that kind of identity. I believe that the user should always be in control of creating their password to begin with.
mhm.
Um, so um, so yeah, so we've got that kind of system where
The
um,
first thing is exactly what I'm doing today,
yeah.
but I agree it's not a good approach.
Yeah. Um, okay, so there's the two options kind of give you two different workflows there. So um, if you've got if you've got the single tenant identity, so all users are at the top level, then what that flow looks like is here, download this DWS app and create an account. Okay, there's my username, there's my password. I'm logged in to DWS. I see no suppliers.
Okay.
And then you say, okay, great. Now give me your username. And that can be done by scanning a QR code or entering some code. There's some kind of out-of-band handshake that happens in order for you to exchange that information. But essentially, you're saying, this is my
Mm.
username, so I've already created an account.
So the user gives his username to a supplier,
Mm-hmm.
and that supplier will enable that user in his system.
Right, yes.
And at that moment, the user will see that supplier in the list of suppliers where he can log in.
Yep, yep, and only that one. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Um,
that first part is authentication, and then that second part where the supplier says, okay, now you have access to this one supplier, that's authorization.
okay. Um, so the user only has to create an account once.
Mm-hmm.
He can give his account ID or a QR code or whatever. He can show that to multiple suppliers,
Mm-hmm.
and these suppliers will authorize that account to enter their system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
I, I,
that's that option. That's the one that I recommend. Um, yeah.
mhm.
The other option is that the supplier has to first give them some kind of an invitation, and then once they accept that invitation, then they can create the account. And so every new supplier, here's a new invitation. This new invitation goes into the DWS app, but now, hey, this is a new tenant. You have to create a brand new account.
That would mean an account for every supplier.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's. Um,
Well, for each one that you work with, yeah.
yeah,
Under yeah, in neither scenario do you see the list of all suppliers in the system.
mm. But I think in the single tenant case, um, so there you just have one user account per user,
Mm-hmm.
and the suppliers once they allow you in their system. Would there be any disadvantage to that system?
Um, I yeah I yeah I can't think of a disadvantage as compared to the other one. Um, yeah, that gives the supplier the same amount of control because they're controlling the authorization. Um, they just don't have to worry about the authentication. That the user has already been authenticated by the time they start
Mm.
interacting with them. So, yeah, in the diagram that you're showing now, this supports that that flow. So
Yeah.
when the user downloads the DWS application, says, okay, I'm going to create an account. They're creating that user fact, which has no
Mm.
predecessors. There was nothing before that. And at that point, that's the only fact that exists for them. They can't see
Yeah.
any worker or dispatcher facts. Um, and then when they share their username with the supplier, they're really sharing that user fact. That the whole handshake is just about get that public key over to the supplier. And that way the supplier can create the worker fact. Say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this user is a worker for this supplier.
Yeah. I think that's the way we have to do it. Um, yeah, but so in the simple version, right, if we go back to that simple version,
Mm-hmm.
um, because actually there it's not possible, but nothing forbids to bring user up one level and to work with a worker fact.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have for the authentication exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. So
yes,
making you bring that part of the model in, but still keep the rest simple. Yeah.
yeah. Because the advantage would be that the users who switch from the old system to the new system, they have immediately the final login uh, way of logging in. Um, and I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that is something that I think we're going to want to talk about at some point. Is how do you migrate users to the new system? How do you migrate data to the new system? That's probably yeah, the whole discussion. So I'll just tease that.
Data from the current system to the intermediate system then.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good name for it.
Yeah. Because so the simple version will be the intermediate system, will be the old system with new technology.
Mm-hmm.
And then the purpose is to enhance the model and the software to go to something that looks like the extended system.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So that's always that's always an interesting problem to solve. Um, and in fact, there's one project that I basically made that the entire focus of the project. So we're building this new system, and all along the way, we are constantly integrating with the old system. So we're
mm,
bringing in all the old data as we build it, and that really helped us to go live. There wasn't just a big bang migration of data, and then nope, you can't use the old one anymore. It's all the new one. It's like no,
mm.
keep merging it in.
Okay, so that was with conversion in both directions of facts between the new system to the old system.
In that case, I only did one direction of migration, um, and that's because that specific application had a small number of users who could change things. Most For most users, it was read only. Um,
Okay.
so so doing a big bang, don't write to that one, write to this one, was not a big deal in that case. But in general, doing it bidirectional, that's uh,
Okay.
that's the best way to avoid those nervous single days of like, okay, after this they will, yeah, that one's retired.
It has to work, and if it doesn't work, we have a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So bidirectional, definitely the way to go.
okay. All right. Just looking, can we adapt that on the fly? If I log in, the virtual machine and meanwhile is restarted.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see whether that works.
Yeah.
Everything seems slow today.
Yeah, it's that inception. You're in a virtual machine inside a virtual machine.
Uh,
You only have one level, but
I think that's the artificial intelligence that comes up and knows that it's a holiday today, but over here, I didn't tell them,
mm,
but apparently they know. Okay, so open this one. Okay, don't give me the release notes. I don't need. Here I have my what's new. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't care. Uh, wait, how the
yeah.
problem if you?
But while you're doing that, yeah,
Yeah.
I do want to kind of point out uh, the fact that this predecessor successor relationship helped us to reason through that. Um, that's that was really the point that I was trying to make on yesterday's talk, is that this doesn't just solve these technical problems. This helps you to reason through, um, you know, if you these decisions that you're making about the user experience. So, if we if we set things up this way, then the user experience has to be, like this. But if we set it up a different way, the user experience has to be different. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and So the simple thing about an arrow between user and supplier, it's like, oh, that means a completely different experience.
Um, wait, I have both here on top of each other. It's not gonna be just one line that I have to change.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. All of the arrows going up to user would need to change. Yeah,
yeah,
except for username. You can still have username at the top level. The supplier doesn't. You don't have to have a different name for every supplier.
wait, which one are you seeing right now?
Mm.
The simple one.
I'm still seeing the
Yeah,
simple one. Yes. Yeah, I'm not seeing the
because
options change.
I see so many things now. Um, yeah, the username. That one. I think I better make this change offline
Okay.
because we're gonna be confused.
Yeah.
Totally confused. I think I'm gonna put one on one screen, the other one on the other screen, and then the third one put my virtual machine in the middle and start adding in from both sides.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we will end up with a model which doesn't work anymore. Um, but okay, so
Okay.
then we have user on top, supplier on top. Um, and so then everything goes to, not to user, but goes to worker. So in
Yep.
fact, this becomes more or less a worker fact, which
Yes.
points to the user. Um, but all the rest can stay exactly the way it is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Client, yeah, will still be a successor of supplier. Tool will be a type of work. Assigned type of leave. Yeah. With the local facts,
Mm-hmm.
um, because these local facts, they are persisted in the local database
Mm-hmm.
and they disappear automatically after a while, or they can be deleted.
They can be deleted. Wouldn't be automatic. So so yeah, local facts. If you never have a or a successor that you share, they'll stay on the local device, and then you can call a method periodically to rotate the database, to move that local store into the background and create an empty one, and then start pulling through. Um, so uh, so basically, you call that twice, and
Mm.
then those local facts are gone. So first time they're just in the background, and the second time that's flushed in the next ones in the background.
Yeah. I'm asking because for the GPS, so these GPS coordinates,
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of them.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I would like to send all of them to the server, just for the diagnostic purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But once we have the right algorithms, I think to combine a lot of these GPS points into single points,
Yeah.
so that we get the points that are important, we keep, and all the rest we throw away, or we replace by one average point or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, somebody who doesn't move, uh, like me, I'm sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have DBS right now, every 2 minutes, I think it will register a point. But it's 2 minutes. We have to decrease that time,
Mm-hmm.
for example, every 2 seconds. But that
Mm-hmm.
means we have a lot of points. And as long as I'm seated here, these points have no value.
Yeah.
It would be better just to take, for example, if we are sitting there during 1 hour, 3,600 points. just average them, and then we have an accurate position, and that average we send over.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so yeah, you can do that with local, and then yeah, just as you said, for you would start off not using local. You would start off just using regular Janaga client.fact,
mhm,
and that would send it to the replicator, and then you push an update that changes it to local, and then as people get that update, then they start just saving those locally. Um, uh, and then, so one thing would be that the summary or the average of those GPS coordinates would not use GPS raw as a predecessor, um, because if it did, it would send all that data. So, so instead, it would
okay.
just capture that, and it would be independent of GPS raw.
It's a completely independent graph.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think
Now,
that would solve that problem. There's also the option of keeping that data, off model. So keeping the raw GPS data in a file, and then doing the summarization and creating the one summary fact.
hmm,
So you can still have the same strategy of, at first it's a fact that is always published, and then you ship a new version of the software. It's just when you ship that new version, are you shipping something that saves raw data in a file, or saves raw data in the model? Um, yeah, I would say that the model is not a terribly efficient way to capture a new fact every second or two, but uh, but it's it would be easy because it's already integrated. Um, so so then you have to make that decision of do you want to
okay.
do something by hand that's going to be more efficient for this case?
Mhm. Because it's gonna be a little bit more complicated because I still need on the dispatcher screen
Mm-hmm.
um, the the point where the technician is um, has to indicate whether it's up to date or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because it might be that the technician is sitting down, is not moving. So of course the point doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always up to date. But it might be that he's gone already, but he had no connection.
Yeah.
So the dispatcher says, "Oh, he's sitting there for 1 hour." No, might be, but
Uh-huh.
I have no connection, so I cannot not confirm.
Yeah.
So in one or the other way, I will have to send something, but that might not be every second. For example, doesn't matter whether he's gone 30 seconds ago, but for example, 5 minutes, every 5 minutes, send one of these bad coordinates
Mm-hmm.
or intermediate coordinates. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So yeah. Seems like yeah we'll want to build in some knobs. Yeah. So it can
some
be
pre-processing.
detailed, or it can be
Yeah.
yeah, and certainly a timestamp on each one of the
Hmm.
those facts,
Yeah.
so that you can see if he's really just been sitting there for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's just one point followed by a bunch of silence.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
A UTC timestamp.
yes, yes, everything's in UTC. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We just had that UTC conversation again at my client. And it's like, just store everything UTC. Um, but yeah, yeah. Janaka doesn't even give you that option. It's like it's going to be stored in UTC. You have to figure out uh, what you're going to do with that. So with this, yeah, I had one other thought. Oh yeah, so you had mentioned, I think last time we talked about this, about the dispatcher um, wanting to be able to reach down to the device and get more detailed information. Do I have that right?
That he has a way to say, give me updates.
Okay.
Um,
So it's not like go
So
back in history and say, well, I need to see the detailed points for this average. So
that, well, no use to go back too long.
mm-hmm,
Um, because actually, so the pre-processing we will be doing on the device
mm-hmm,
will summarize a little bit, but the most important thing is to leave out data that is not valuable.
yeah,
Somebody is sitting somewhere during an hour, no use to send 3,600 points over.
okay,
Just one accurate point,
okay,
because otherwise, if you're sitting inside a building, especially then, the accuracy of the GPS is a little bit less. And
mm-hmm,
on your map, you see
yeah,
he's jumping around the building. Um, it, it it's no use.
yeah, not helpful.
So by watching during some time, and you see that he always come back to the same point, and he stays within a certain circle,
Mm-hmm.
and you might even on a telephone look for the gyroscope.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, there is an
Mm-hmm.
accelerometer built in most of the telephones,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I think that's already used to calculate the GPS as well these days.
Yeah, yeah. GPS is not
Yeah,
one single sensor anymore. It's
yeah.
yeah, a whole bunch of information.
But anyway, based on all that information, um, we could say, okay, it didn't move, just one
Mm-hmm.
point. Um,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'd asked about that thing about you know, hey, I need to see the detailed points for this one thing, um, uh,
so what?
because if that were the case, then it would make sense to keep all of that detail in the model, and
Mm,
then the request to upload that detail would be another fact that then the device would respond to with, here's the response in all those predecessors, and now they get uploaded. Um, but yeah, sounds like that feature is not necessary. So.
so what could be interesting is that we don't, for example, we send let's say every 10 minutes, we send an update on the position to
Mm-hmm.
the dispatcher, or every 5 minutes. But at a certain moment, the dispatcher might say, I need to know now exactly where he is.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to get already the more
Okay.
detailed information. Um,
Okay. Okay. That was the scenario. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So.
instead of bundling all the positions, for example, standard send them every 5 minutes or every 2 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
because that information is not really needed on the spot, and that will take a lot of battery.
Mm-hmm.
You just say, for example, every 2 minutes or every 5 minutes, and if the dispatcher needs it to know now, it just pushes a button, and at that moment, everything.
Yeah.
If there is a connection.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that is a more fine-tuned scenario. So something similar, I think, can happen. So it's not that we're collecting all the data just in case somebody asks for it. Instead, this request changes the behavior of the summarization algorithm. So it's like usually it's just summarizing, but then I see this request, therefore I'm going to give you 1 point right now.
Mhm.
This is a direct measurement from the device, and then we can go back to summarizing.
Yeah, but perhaps a kind of debug mode would be useful also, where you send
Mm,
all the points over.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, we will see. That's
yeah, yeah. So we can use the capability of subscribing. So yeah, yeah, Janaga client.watch versus Janaga client.subscribe. So you subscribe to the dispatcher's request for location. So that's
mhm,
one fact that the dispatcher can create. So you subscribe to those, and so um, most of the rest of the model you're not subscribing to, so you don't see like real time
mhm,
pushes, but that one you do. So when they send it, then the subscribe pings immediately, as long as there's a connection, and um, and then it responds, it sends it back up. So yeah, I think that's going to work nicely.
Yeah, we're gonna we're gonna see how that turns out. That should
Yeah.
be okay. Yeah, I think I should try this model out in the what was it called already?
The polyglot notebooks.
Yeah, yeah, in
Yeah.
the notebooks.
Yeah.
Um, try that out with all the scenarios that I have on my screens,
Mm-hmm.
and see where that gets us.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I find that to be a an excellent tool for this kind of
hmm,
analysis.
because in theory it looks good,
Mm-hmm.
but perhaps we forgot things. We will see.
Yep. Yep. And the model tells you when you forgot something.
Hmm. Not because the screens I have them from my old application,
Mm-hmm.
so it's
Yeah.
quite easy to reason about it.
Uh-huh.
Um, just make the queries, add some data in it, and see what we get.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right,
Yep. Should be fun.
I'm gonna try that.
Excellent. All right. So yeah, then you'll have that done next week, and we can just go over
I'm
that.
gonna
Might take a
I'm
bit
gonna
longer.
no, I'm gonna do it because I really have to restart to take up back this DWS,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise I'm forgetting faster than I'm learning for the moment. That's no good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it might be helpful to you if I were to put together some. Well, I've got some examples, but I think they're kind of scattered. But yeah, if I had an example, especially on Janaga.net, you could just go there and say, "This is how you use it with notebooks. Here's an example." Um, I think that might be helpful. So.
Yeah, because I still have a lot of examples scattered everywhere,
Uh huh.
but it's searching, um, and I'm even not sure whether they still all work with the latest version of the tools.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Fortunately, it forces you to put a version number. Well, actually, I don't think it forces you to, but I've been in the habit of putting a version number at the top,
mm,
so it installs that particular version of the library. So yeah,
yeah,
you'd say, oh, update the version number. Oh, it breaks. Okay.
but if you have somewhere an example that is made with the latest version,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives, for example, the functionality to draw the facts and all that.
Yeah.
Um, because I remember the last time I tried, I had some difficulties there. I don't know why it was. Uh, something changed in the software, and afterwards I was lost.
Yeah. Um,
Let
yeah. So
me.
uh, I think the one to look for. Oh, and that's
Naga.net.
this one actually doesn't have version numbers in the. But yeah, I think the one that you would want to look for is in the blog Maui repository. Um, so that one
Um,
actually connects to a real replicator, so you'll want to change that to just use local storage. But yeah, it's got some modeling in there, so it shows the models, and then it's got some sample data, and it shows the sample data. Yeah, yeah. I was using this in order to test edits to mutable properties. So there's
mm,
examples in there for that. Um, Not a lot of text though. This is just code. um, I do want to get um, uh, into kind of a pattern of describing a model in text and then showing the code and having that be documentation. But
Mhm.
um, but yeah, in the blog malware repository, that might be a good starting point.
All right, let me. Uh, Naga.net. I just found out that the website jinaga.net,
Mm-hmm.
suffers again from that problem. If you type www.jinaga.net,
Mm.
it doesn't work. You have to leave out the W.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I forget what the DNS solution for that is. But yeah, and I think
mm,
yeah, it also interferes with HTTP HTTPS. Is that it's trying to it's trying to upgrade you from HTTP to HTTPS, but then it has
mm,
to do that with a redirect, and it's got to go from www to the naked domain with the redirect. So, yeah, those two things compete with each other.
right. Block Maui. I have it here. Okay, there is a folder notebooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there I have blog.ip. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. If I click that one, Jinaga 0.11.2 graphics. Okay, so there we are having some classes, some facts, the drawing from the facts, okay, with the render types. That were the types. Okay, then the render facts we have. And there was a third one, eh? We could render the facts, we could render the types, and we could give the intermediate, the factual language.
Yes. Yes.
And how did that work? Um,
Uh, in order to get the factual language, um, you would take uh, the specification, and rather than say, for example, calling query with it, you would
mm,
um, you would call dot. Actually, I think just dot toString. Um, yeah, that'll give you the factual representation of it. Um,
okay, I will, yeah, because that I don't see. No, that's not documented here, but okay,
yeah,
I will try that out. If it doesn't work, you will hear it.
yeah, yeah. Let me know as soon as possible, and I will get that
Okay.
fixed.
Good, good. That should make me being able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yep, I am looking forward to seeing this come together.
Hmm. Next week you will be there?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, me too.
Excellent.
With an with an adapted model this time.
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Very good.
unless you still have other things.
I think that'll cover it for today.
Okay, Michael, then we see each other next week.
Indeed. See
Okay,
you then.
bye bye.
Thanks, John.